Okay, this study of light, of the light that I'm filming, I'm going to show you part of a video I made where I talk about my third eye opening. And I'm going to just show you that right here. This is supposed to be like my nose. I'm trying to draw a picture of what it's like. And right here is my eye. But it doesn't look like an eye. When I see it outside of my body, I see it as a flap. And I think I had explained in the last video how when my third eye opens and closes, as I'm seeing it in the light, I see this flap right here that just opens and closes with the opening and closing of my own eye. So I think it's my third eye I'm seeing outside my body. And there's all these little colorful bubbles that cling to either side of these flaps here. This is a flap and that's a flap. And this light is coming out from inside my eye and going into this bigger expansion of an orb that is always moving. And it's like my eye is biting into a big orb, which it looks like sometimes it hasn't quite gotten through it, but it can see into it. And all this color goes into the orb. First when I would see the orb with all these little things floating around, well, they weren't very colorful. They were more like black and white. But then over time they began to be colorful. And sometimes I think the color comes from us, our observation. Maybe the color is showing our emotion. Now, these little things you see here, I have better explanations of them. Okay, I'm going to end that right there. But I wanted you to see the little drawing I did of the flaps and the colorful bubbles, which are, I'm pointing to them, on the edges of the flap. They would build up in number and then turn loose and go into the big orb. And it was after they started doing that that big orb that I saw with the naked eye began to have colorful things moving about in it. And now some of the pictures I take of the orbs now show bubbles on them. And so I've taken to calling them thought bubbles. And you know, sometimes people say this cartoon character is speaking, and up here in this little bubble, that's the words. So I thought that sounds like, yeah, they had some idea that our thoughts are like little bubbles. So I'm going to show you a few of the pictures of different orbs that have bubbles on them. Now there's bubbles in the dark pockets you see in this one. But look at this next one. The bubbles fall out. You can see it very plainly there. And the bubbles aren't very colorful, but they become colorful as they move through the orb. And sometimes the bubbles bend themselves around an orb like a circle, or they'll just be in one big spot, like this one. Here's another one. Sometimes they fall over the edge, all those colorful bubbles. Because thoughts are things in the invisible world. They may look exactly like this. You know, I don't know for sure, but you know, I'm thinking that could be. Here's another. And sometimes they're just in layers woven into the orb. They just look so many kinds of ways. That one just has two spots of color, darker colors. The darker colors, when I am developing the picture on my Picasso I have to add dark into some of the very lighter ones of the orbs because too much light and you don't see the color. So dark is very good at making color stand out. And see, there's some there. There's some there that are falling off the edges there. And there they are doing the same thing. They just seem to be doing that. I call them thought bubbles. I'm not going to give them some big long name that's hard to pronounce. And see there, they just kind of cling into the side of this orb. Sometimes it's a really dark spot. Maybe that's thoughts that are too dark. I don't know. Sad thoughts, maybe. And I don't know if you can see that well in this, but this band kind of goes around like a ring around a planet. Can't see it too good in my cell phone. I'm not seeing it like I do on my screen. But it just rings around the orb. Here's another picture of one doing the same thing. And sometimes there's just a little touch of it on the side. Those are real reddish and dark bubbles. And those two are seeming to be dropping off the edges of this. Or maybe it's another orb moving in toward it. Okay, now that one I think very interesting because it looks like it has an outer crust that's white and the inside is all the colorful bubbles that have just overfilled and broken out of that orb. I really like this one. More of the colorful bubbles falling over the edge there, you can see. And those are just loose. That's not inside of an orb. It's just loose, colorful, dark colored bubbles. They can be any color. And it's subject to change as well. All of the colors inside of an orb are subject to change at any second. Okay, that's all of them. Now, also, I'm going to go back to my library and I'm going to put some pictures of Harry. This is a little light creature, and I'm going to go through a succession of pictures, and some of them might be the same picture because it's kind of hard. He always looks the same way. There'll be different colors in the background, but I seem to always catch him pretty much looking in the same way, in the same portion of the orb that I can get. I can never get the solid round orb showing him right in the middle. It's always at the edge cut off of it on the upper left. But Harry is a little light creature, and I see him quite a lot with one camera. I'll show you that camera. This camera right here. It's a little Kodak Easy Share. I'm not getting it too good. There it is. Now you can see it. Inside of this camera there are things that I call artifacts because they show up in my pictures. I don't think Harry, though, is an artifact, but at first I thought he might be a piece of debris that fell around inside that camera because it does have some other things that are artifacts, and I will be showing you them after I get through showing you Harry. I'm always taking his picture. I've got a lot of pictures of him. And sometimes when I'm filming Harry in live action, you know, not just snapping one picture, I won't see him and I'll call for him. I'll say, Harry, show up. And in about a minute, he shows up. So maybe that's a kind of a communication. Oh, there's one I got him in the whole orb in the picture. But usually it's like this. He has a little appendage that goes out to that side. Sometimes there's things around him that he seems to be entangled in somewhat. And sometimes he doesn't come through very clear. But mostly I picked out the better pictures of him that I have for this video. He has little parts to himself that just seem to float in a space around him that don't seem to be connected, visually anyway. I see all kinds of colors can be in the background when I see Harry. No, that one he did. These couple over there, they didn't turn out too good. Still, it was him, but sometimes I think I jiggle a little bit when I snap, and then I get a bad picture. Like that one's a bad one, but that was Harry there. Okay, now I'm going to show you, I'll make this bigger, the artifacts. This is the one I'll show. I have another one of her that I call the little fairy, and it's usually very dark in the picture, so you can't make out that it looks like a little fairy. This one I call the double jointed artifact because there's two joints in there, and I've seen things in orbs real similar to this thing that seems to be something inside the workings of my camera. There's another one of them that shows up quite a lot. Now this, I want to show you in this, what I call the bullet holes. It's that little spot there and there. There's 4 of them that they make a diagonal straight line across. This next one will show you them better. and they'll be a little bigger. See, there's one, there's one, there's one up there. There's 4 of them, and they just appeared one day. And there's one of the first or second ones that I ever got. Once you start getting the artifacts, there's the first one artifact I ever had. And there's one that I call the one that looks like an ant. Here's another one. Looks like a little hand grenade. And here's one. And there's the fairy where you can see her a little better. And there's another, one of the three-fold one. The double jointed one, rather. Now these, I want to show you this because these are showing you the little eye sockets that this camera puts in. Well, I don't know if the camera does it, but every orb that shows up that I take with this camera puts eye sockets in the orbs. And it's not something stuck in the camera because it couldn't be, because it positions itself in a precise place inside of each orb. Mostly I'm taking a picture of only one orb, so you'll see the eye sockets. But sometimes I have something that has several little sparkles of light off of it, and they all make an orb. And they will always have the little eye sockets to be on the right side, just a little bit below center. And see, they're in all of these orbs. And I think that is so strange. I really do. It kind of gives it a personality to see the little eye sockets. And I think that's about all I had for you. In that series, I wanted to show you Harry and my artifacts and the thought bubbles. Let me know what anyone thinks about all this, if you have any thoughts about it. I would love to hear them. And this is the Dove Lady, over and out for now.